Welcome to the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast. Having a gang of mentors in this industry has been a blessing that we wanted to share with you. Our core group has been traveling together and comparing notes about life and business for years. Tune in as we delve into topics with others in the industry that you are sure to love and make you laugh.
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast. You are stuck with me today, Brandon Mullen, and I have the gorgeous, I know you can't see her because we don't have video yet, the gorgeous Dr. Gretchen Frieling, who is now I'm probably going to butcher this, dermatopathologist. Is that right? I did good? Okay.
Yeah.
She is the owner of G-Face MD with 2 locations, one in Boston, Cape Cod. Sawyer Skincare Collection is amazing. She has G-Face Training Academy. She's a global speaker trainer. She has 3 beautiful kids, a cute, adorable husband. She has her own podcast, Face It with Dr. G, and an upcoming awesome ultrasound conference in Boston, Face It Live, December 2nd and 3rd. I mean, I don't know what else you don't do. Do you make wax candles on the side in your spare time, Gretchen? I don't know.
Yeah, I love to make floral arrangements.
Okay, well, there you go.
No, I mean I do, but I like to work out too sometimes and read books and do nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah, so she does that in her sleep. I was actually thinking last night, you've been traveling so much, and my cat had the zoomies, and I'm like, if we mapped out all of your travel in the past couple months, it would probably be like trying to chase my cat around the house. You've been everywhere. And I think you're going, to Miami this weekend?
Yep, I go to Miami for a big women's in aesthetics conference with AAFE. And then I'm in Newport Beach with Benev for their X-Class experience. And I'm in Barcelona for a Mertz Global Expert Summit. Then it's Thanksgiving,
Wow.
And then it's Face It Live. So it's a lot of amazing stuff.
Gosh, I'm tired listening to all the things that you have to do. It's amazing. I mean,
we
you
haven't
do it
even
all.
started yet, though. We haven't even started talking
I know,
yet.
right? It's crazy. So the purpose of this podcast, if I had $1 for every person in my life, in my previous life as a bedside nurse, that's asked me, how do I get into aesthetics, Brandon? What do I need to do first? It's no easy feat, right? It's no direct path. And I really wanted to get your insight into this from the physician perspective, being that you are a dermatologist and a pathologist as well. You have an amazing perspective from your purview. And I think that, coming from, I'm a doctor and I want to get into aesthetics, and I'm a nurse and I want to get into aesthetics, I think it's a little bit different depending on the state and the laws, obviously. But I kind of just wanted to create something that when that person asks, how do I get into it? I can just give them this podcast link instead of writing 85 texts back and forth. So maybe you can share a little bit about your journey, and then maybe what's step 1 that you have offered to colleagues in the industry to make their way into aesthetics.
Yeah, I love this. And I'm so proud of you for thinking of this idea. I think it's brilliant and awesome. My journey was interesting, as well as everybody's journeys are unique. And hopefully you guys can learn something from this. But my takeaway point will be know your why, as we mentioned, Brandon, and your weaknesses, or what you perceive and believe your weaknesses are actually your biggest power. And as a dermatopathologist, I obviously have 3 board certifications, but aesthetics historically has been one of those fields where there is a disconnect between core physicians, which are dermatologists and plastic surgeons, and then non-core physicians. And we're hopefully bridging this gap. I really believe we are at this point. But when I started, I wasn't a dermatologist, and I'm a pathologist by training, dermpath by fellowship. And I was worried that I wasn't going to be accepted in this field of medicine because I wasn't a core physician. And that has changed now, but there are a lot of non-core physicians that are entering this field and actually propelling it enormously. For example, radiologists and ultrasound. We have a ton of radiologists that are getting into the ultrasound side of aesthetics. We have OBGYNs, we have anesthesiologists, we have cardiologists. So how do those types of people get into this field? Well, it's challenging. And I think it's getting easier in the sense that there's more resources. So there's more people to reach out to. I have people reach out to me all the time, and I encourage you all to reach out to me whenever you want. I can give you any advice. But let me go back. Let me tell you a little bit about how I started. So I am a dermatopathologist. I practiced that specialty for about 4 years, reading skin biopsies from all over the country. I was board in 10 plus states, and knew that my why is I knew I didn't want to sit in front of a microscope all day, every day. I love it. I am very visual. I want to know the answers. I always ask questions, photographic memory, and I love it. I love the efficiency of it. I loved the communication between the physicians, but I didn't love the isolation part of it.
Right.
And I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to start one. Look, I have 4, but okay. So I wanted to start one, and that was either going to be a dermatopathology lab or some sort of lab where I processed slides and created a unique experience, or something in the aesthetic medical field. And I am a ballerina. I danced at Juilliard. I am very artistic. I love art forms, I love beauty, all of those things, right? But that seems superficial, but if you love those, then that is meaningful. So
Right.
I was drawn to this field, and I just had it in my mind, right? I'm a doer, but I'm also a thinker, so I'm a balance of them. And I have in my mind, you want to be 80% sure of any decision you make. If you wait until you're 100% sure, you're probably never going to pull the trigger. So make sure you're around 80% sure. If that 20% doesn't work the way you wanted it to, be okay with that. But I was always 80% sure of my decisions and kind of pulled the trigger. So I said, I like the name G-Face MD. Why not? It's my initials, it's got face and it's got MD in it, okay. And I designed the logo. And what's the worst case scenario, right? You change it. Okay, who cares? Right? But if you don't use it and move forward, you're never going to get there. So have I had issues with the names I've chosen, the logo? Yes and no. I recommend everyone to get things trademarked. That's a whole other topic of podcast. Trademarked in every color, under the sun, and then if issues arise, you just deal with them. If the domain's not available, you deal with them. But you want to go through this whole checklist of what you do when you start a business. So I went ahead with G-Face MD. I started in one room in the back of a nail salon on the side, and I had a paper sign on the door. It humbles you, but I was so proud. I was so proud of the simplicity of that one little tiny room and the paper sign. And it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And here we are. So
how did you get your training? So your very first injectable experience, did you do like a weekend course? Did you shadow? Where did you start there?
So I'm lucky enough to have, in my fellowship, they had a pretty big cosmetic practice. So I was in the dermatology division at the University of Vermont, and I was able to get experience there. And then from then, I have mentors in Boston and in Massachusetts that I had private trainings with. Michelle Doran, I don't know if you've met her. She's part of AIA. She's phenomenal. She trained me at the very beginning, came to my one little tiny office, and was just phenomenal. And a lot of reading. I have many textbooks. I wish I had them in front of you. Here's a new one that I just got. This is an anatomy textbook. Facial Aging and Injection Anatomy by Lee Walker and Raul Seto. It's really good. So textbooks are important, but you can't learn to inject with a textbook, right? That's anatomy, and that's maybe understanding the differences between products. My biggest advice when you're really just starting, it depends on, okay, so there's 2 different routes to take. There's a ton of different basic level courses. Are those bad? No. Are they going to get you to a point of feeling comfortable right afterwards to inject? Maybe, maybe not. But you have to start somewhere. Right. And you can start by reaching out and doing private trainings with somebody like me, or there's many others that do private trainings, and those are amazing. They're a little more expensive, but you get a lot, and you'll probably likely be more able and confident to inject after a private training. So, and then there's trainings that are, I mean, what are some of the brand names? There's,
So I think
oh my gosh, there's so many of them.
AAMSPA has a lot of good adjunct cadaver labs. That's a little bit aggressive in the beginning, but I think you get to see a lot of technique. I'm a very like visual learner too, and I think it depends on the individual and their best learning style. I learn by listening to. I could recite Ashley's consult, verbatim, like just listening to her for the past 2.5 years. But I think shadowing, looking at things like the Academy, I think it's AIM.
Well, so one of my Aesthetic Institute of Massachusetts is one up here in Massachusetts. Audrey Rose has a huge organization in Massachusetts. If you guys aren't aware, I live in Boston. So I know that you mentioned that, Brandon. So there's the Aesthetic Mentor I've heard of. There is LexRx, a dear friend of mine, Alexa. She started LexRx Training Academy in Boston. There are a ton of them. AAMS is another one. So I think you have to decide how you learn best. And if you want to say, I'm just going to jump into this, I don't really care. I just want to get my feet wet. And to be honest with you, it requires money. If you want to get into this field, you're going to have to pay, right? It's a residency program, it's education, and it's not cheap. So if you know it's not cheap, then why don't you make sure your money is going to something that's the most efficacious? So understanding your learning style, if you want more of a private environment or more of a group environment, okay? And then use it. So connect with people. AAMSPA, as you mentioned, has amazing boot camps that really help you get on your feet. They have business boot camps. They have injecting boot camps. They have the anatomy cadaver lab. So I think it's also split up between, do you want to own your own practice? Do you want to be your own boss, or do you want to set yourself up to work for someone else? I guess that's another subdivision of this conversation.
Right.
Because I do get people, I actually had a patient yesterday, adorable woman who wants to get into the field, said, I didn't want to wait. I felt like I couldn't get a job opportunity because I needed experience before I could get the job offer, which is ironic because I usually hire people with no experience. Right. So she decided to start on her own, and now she's renting a room and she's injecting, and she says, I don't know if it's going to be for me to have my own business or not, but I'm going to try it out. So figuring out which paths of those you want to take. And if you definitely don't want to own your own business, a lot of the questions I get are, how do I prove to you? How do I prepare myself to work for you? What do I do? What textbooks can I read? Another really good one, Chris Surek has a great anatomy book that's available on Amazon. If you guys would like me to give you a list, I should have had that for you. GFace MD is my Instagram. Just go and message me. I can send you a list of books to read. Podcasts are phenomenal.
Yes.
They really are. I'm going to open up my phone and I'm going to read to you the podcast because
I 100% agree. Yeah. Growth 99 is amazing for like analytical and business. AAMSPA has their own podcast as well that has a plethora of resources, and you get to hear from great people like you. I've been on there. I know like a ton of people have been on there, and Tiffany Hall has what's hers? Aesthetic. I know it's aesthetic
for
record,
the
but for the record. That's right. I have the coffee mug in front of me. Oh my God, I can't even believe I missed that one.
Inside Aesthetics is another one with Jake Sloan and David Segal. I think it may be a subscription at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Mastery of Aesthetics, which is a good one. And Those are
Terry
some
Ross.
of the great. Oh, Terry Ross has a great one.
In Touch
Yep.
with Terry.
Yep. And that brings me to Patreon.
Yes.
So Patreon is another huge platform that I am going to get on because I think it's necessary, where you subscribe to current injectors that are either business owners or not, and I think usually there's a bunch of different tiers you can subscribe to, whatever it is, and you can see their hands-on advice, leadership, mentorship, guidance, education. It's awesome. Erica Berry, Julie Bass Kaplan, those are two of the big ones I know that people have, and people love them and they learn a ton. So
Yeah, absolutely. I actually joined Julie's for funsies a couple years ago before I got into practice management when I was thinking about injecting. And it's a very good resource, but like you said, I mean, it doesn't replace hands-on. It's very adjunct, but it's a good place to start and to get familiar with people and names, and you can figure out who are trusted leaders in this profession.
yeah. I have to say too, after doing, let's say you did all of these things without going to any live conference, you bought some books, you listened to some podcasts, every step that you make is going to create more questions in your mind and lead you in one direction versus the other. So let's you say you do everything, let's say 4 months of reading and listening and all this. I think what really got me going is truly going to a big conference. And my first one was Aesthetic Next.
Same.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there you get the landscape. Is it overwhelming? 100%. But people that you've listened to podcasts like you, Brandon, you guys, a ton of people come up to me. You meet people in person, you form relationships, and you start really asking the questions. How do I do this? Can you help me? And then through relationships, I truly believe is how you'll grow. Because let's say I can't give you a position in my practice, but I know 5 other people that are hiring. Or let's say you just want a hands-on mentorship and you want to spend 6 months with me. There you go. There's only so much you can do remotely, I believe, and even in basic courses. I think going to a conference, just your first one, will change your life, and it gets you really excited.
100%. I couldn't agree more, because whenever I first got into aesthetics, unfortunately, Ashley was doing well enough that she needed a practice manager after opening her practice after 3 months. I had no idea what I was doing. She's like, I need this, this, and this. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. I'm kind of just that kind of person. But obviously I had a baseline understanding and interest in aesthetics, but not from the injecting point of view. And this circles back to your why. And when I first started working with her, I'm like, I'm just going to do whatever it is that makes your life easy. And I always say I should have put some guardrails on that, but that's okay. I've learned a lot of the art of the business, but I knew my why. I wasn't going to work as a practice manager and then 2 years down the road switch and be an injector. If that was my desire, she would definitely support that. But I knew what I was getting into. And circling back to, picking your lane kind of when you come in here, and maybe you don't want to know, or you don't know if you are going to be a business owner and injector, or if you just want to work for somebody. People have that very finitely in their head, and some people don't. We actually have a podcast listener of this podcast who ended up shadowing, and I think we're going to do another shadow session with her based off of the information that we provided. Like, this is where this stuff starts, guys. Like, it's amazing. But going up to people and getting comfortable being uncomfortable, especially at conferences, is really hard for someone like me too. But it's about meeting people and making those relationships and putting yourself out there. And yes, spending money on education. Like, shadow does not mean free. You get so much from shadowing, I believe. It's a lower cost than actual hands-on training in my experience, but I mean, there's a cost to it, and you learn and absorb so much by osmosis from shadowing. And I know that you love to teach, Gretchen, and I'm sure that your shadow experience is amazing, someone being by your side. And I know that you're passionate about all the things in ultrasound and explaining everything as you're doing it. I mean, your Instagram is chock full of knowledge. Just, I love when you do your patients are amazing and they let you put all of their video on there of their treatment. It's really nice to see and refreshing.
Yeah, it's the least I can do, right? I wish I could do more, which maybe my Patreon will be much, much more, which is the goal. But the other point I would like to make for new injectors is it's scary because, as you mentioned, being comfortable being uncomfortable. Are you looking to do this full-time or part-time? Because that is a huge decision that makes a big difference. And if you're working in a hospital as a nurse or an NP or a PA or a physician making a salary, you're going to take a pay cut if you go full-time in an aesthetic practice. It's just the reality of it. And you have to be okay with that. If you go part-time, you're not going to learn as quickly. You probably won't get the job as easily. And it's harder. I have part-time people and they're amazing. It's just a totally different mindset, but I understand the financial part of it. So you have to figure out your own situation, because if you take the leap and you say, I'm going to take this year, I'm going to learn, or even sooner, even quicker than that, 6 months, take the pay cut, I've saved money, and then the world is your oyster, the sky is the limit and beyond, great. And I like that attitude because I think you're going 100% in. And you really need to. I mean, my team works so hard, and it's hard to be part-time here because every day you're not here, you miss something.
Right.
So, obviously when you're getting your feet wet and going to, learning and listening to podcasts and maybe going to a conference, obviously don't make that decision. Don't just quit your job and have nothing, right? That's not what I'm recommending.
Don't jump off the diving board.
Unless that's what you want to do. Yeah. But I think every time I do one of these podcasts, I have to say, Brandon, I get so reflective on oh my gosh, all of the things. It's been 8 years, but it's only been 8 years in my mind. I'm like, wow, this is just the beginning, even though it's all of the accomplishments and understanding everything that's happened. But I'm like, I have so much more to do. and I think that's the mentality that you should have. I want to excite everyone that's listening, excite you to understand your why, understand that this can also be figuring out who you are personally and professionally.
Yes.
What you want, what your why is. A lot of times, specifically as physicians, you grind through those years of undergrad, med school, residency, fellowship. You can't see the forest through the trees. You have no idea who you are. You've lost who you are. I lost all my hobbies. I lost so much of who I was. That sounds really morbid. I mean, it wasn't terribly like that, but compared to now, you forget what life is about.
Right.
And then you're like in a job and you're like, wait, do I even really like what I do?
Right. Yeah. And when you love what you do, you don't really work a day in your life. And, I love that you're behind the scenes, you're hands-on in your business, you're packing your skincare, you're doing all the things.
Love it.
Like you love that stuff. And I love that too. Like I know I work more in this job than I did in my cushy account executive job, working for a software company, sitting here, like just my soul was not being fulfilled. It was eating me alive. Like, was I paid nicely? Yeah. I mean, did I like it? But I didn't love it. I wasn't in love with it. I didn't love the person that it made me sometimes, but I love what I do now. It's so dynamic. It's so different every day. And the one thing about aesthetics, no matter what your role is, if you're an owner, injector, you never graduate. You are always learning, and there is always something new. This will always be a field that is dynamic and changing.
100%. And I'm just also now reflecting more on to give people, so that was if you're MD, okay, maybe there's some self-reflection and it brings out who you really are. Advice to those of you listening that are nurses, NPs, PAs at the hospital and want to get into aesthetics. Should I tell you what not to do?
Absolutely. Let's do that.
Yeah. From what I've received over the years, can you reach out on social media? Yes. I think it's beautiful. I think it's easy. I think it's great. if you don't get a response, it's not a bad thing, but maybe just ask for a contact email or someone to talk to ask questions about how you can get a resume to us or whatever it is. On our website, you can put a resume in anytime, and we get those and we love those. Gentle touches of, did you get my email? Did you get my resume? I love those. Those are great. I don't know, for lack of a better word.
DMing and asking, hey, can I work for you? I took this 1 4-hour course last weekend, and I think I've got my certification. I'm now certified to do Botox.
Yeah, don't do that. And also, if you're really in this to be in this, you have to show me that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I, first of all, expect perfection. I expect hard work. I expect amazing results. I expect you to be honest and truthful and ethical and loving and sincere and honest. I said honest again. I expect those things. And if you are begging me to get a job, but then we offer you an interview and you can't do this and this and this and this and this and you can't do all this, what?
Right. You have to be flexible and nimble.
So that's another issue. You have to be flexible and nimble at the beginning. And also, if you want a job, my recommendation is make sure you're financially stable, because you will make a ton of money in aesthetics if you are willing to be a shark and go after it, okay? But at the beginning, in my experience, people take a little bit of a pay cut. So don't come to me and say, I need to know my pay. I need to know what I'm getting. I need to know, I'm like, the interview's over.
Right.
Because I expect every piece of education that you receive from us on a daily basis, it's priceless. You will have education for the rest of your life that is priceless. So don't come to me and ask how much you're going to get paid the first time I meet you.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, when you first start any job, it's not that you start out here, you can't see my hand, but like you have to have reasonable expectations when you're first starting into this industry. And as relationships grow and as people like Gretchen see you hustle and, get your own clients and help them discover their aesthetic goals and upsell, cross-sell, like that will help build your brand experience and also help you make the patient happy ultimately, because that's why we're here, right?
Yeah. And here I also give opportunities such as, you get in and I can teach anyone to put a needle in someone's face. Okay. There's so much more to it than that. If you're technically fantastic, that's not, exactly what is the hardest part of the whole thing. But then you get opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about personal growth, are you interested in aesthetics? Are you interested in other things in aesthetics? Do you want to train? Do you want to teach? Do you want to do a podcast? Do you want to help build different platforms within? Are you interested in skincare? So you have, aesthetics is enormous, and you can gear your specialty and expertise in certain things. So for example, OBGYNs, a lot of them do, general wellness and female health and male health and all the things, because that's what they're drawn to and passionate about. So.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. One thing that I wanted to touch on too was from the nurse or nurse practitioner perspective. AAMSPA is a great resource to look into the legals of what you can and can't do within your state. So always defer back to them. And I know we said a lot of things in a lot of podcasts, so I'll summarize this in the caption for you guys. But make sure that you look at that, because some, like in Virginia, nurse practitioners can own independently. In Pennsylvania, where I live, I'm a nurse. I have to be under the direction of a medical director. So I can't just go and open up my med spa down the street. So a lot of people will reach out to me from a consulting perspective and be like, what can I do? What can I do? And that's a very good start, in addition to figuring out your why as to what can I legally do? Because you want to do this legally. You need to make sure you have malpractice insurance. That's not cheap. There's a lot of things to consider. So,
and you will make mistakes. You will make mistakes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But, there's no direct path to getting into aesthetics, but there are different avenues. And I hope that we imparted a little bit of wisdom on you guys today in regards to that from a couple of different perspectives. But one thing I wanted to do before we wrap up is talk about your newest live endeavor, because from what I understand, you did Face It live virtually during COVID, right?
Yeah. So it started as Face It Virtual in 2020. And I just wanted some sort of educational platform while we're sitting there and doing, nothing, twiddling our thumbs. And it ended up being one of the largest global aesthetic symposiums virtually. It spanned 8 countries and tons of KOLs and a lot of education. It was backed by a lot of the industry manufacturers. So now we're live.
Yes.
And we are so excited. So for all of you guys that are interested in the field, if you have experience or not, it's ultrasound and cadaver anatomy together. It's a 360 degree experience. I always try to create what I would want maybe 5 years ago, or what I want now even. I want a place that you can learn ultrasound with all of the machines available and 10 plus faculty that are not only intelligent, but good educators, so they know how to teach, and humble, hands-on. So it's ultrasound the first day, all the machines, you get your hands on it. First part of the day is knobology, understanding the terminology, echogenicity, gain, how to use an ultrasound and how to read it. And then the second half of the day is ultrasound guided injecting, dissolving, identifying threads in different types of fillers and collagen stimulators on faces that have been injected, and then also just looking at normal anatomy. You have to know normal to know abnormal. So that's the first day on Saturday of education. Sunday is live cadaver anatomy, that's 3D, as well as ultrasound, and everyone has a cadaver. So you'll be able to ultrasound, inject, dissect. It's going to be phenomenal. And before all of it, on Friday, we have an intimate business dinner. So a lot of things we talked about, new injectors, people that want to get into the field, it would be great for. 20 spots available. We have a few left, and then that rolls into a party. So it's Friday, December 1st through the 3rd in
Awesome.
Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yeah, so right outside of Boston.
That's amazing. And what's the website that they can get some more information?
So website is Face It Live, Face It, one word, live, it's all together, .org. And then the Instagram is Face It Live, FACEIT LIV. So
awesome. But I'm sure everybody can find everything from your Instagram anyway, right?
Yeah. Yes. I am posting, we're doing live Instagrams every week, once or twice every week. And we just want to get you guys excited. It's going to be awesome. So
absolutely. I'm so excited to attend. Thank you so much for letting me come play. I'm so excited to see you again. We came off of a very fun weekend in Dallas at the 4S Summit with Terry Ross. That was an amazing weekend too. I've went to more conferences this year than I ever have, and I'm so excited to experience something different with your conference and to meet and network with different people. Like I said, I don't inject, but I love to come and support. I'm a really good Instagrammer in the background with stories. I'm a great hype man, but just excited to get a little bit more knowledge off of you and just have a great time and learn and have a weekend of fun before the holidays.
I know, it's crazy. And it's also a really beautiful time in Boston because it's not too cold, but it's crisp. Perfect.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, if you need to stalk Gretchen at GFaceMD on Instagram, you guys know me, _aesthetic consultant. And thank you for joining us for another episode of the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and comment. Follow us on Instagram at the Aesthetics Injector Gang.